Okay, behind me I have a 2024 Ranger Raptor, and this is probably, while this is the newest vehicle to our fleet, this is my favorite vehicle I've ever been able to shoot a video like this on. I think this is, to date, this is the best all-around off-road vehicle I've ever driven, period. And I'll elaborate on that and I'll tell you why. So, and we'll just dive right in. To start, well, the reason we bought this Ranger Raptor, like the reason we buy every vehicle, is strictly for development. And we go, okay, we like the platform, we're gonna develop a portal kit for this. So specs on this kit, similar to all of our other stuff, it's a 1.22 gear reduction. It's a 3.9-inch lift. It gives you your re-gear. It gives you everything you need to leave the suspension alone, bolt on a portal. In this case, I'm running a 37-inch Nitto trail grappler. So 37, 12, 5, 17 mud terrain tire. And with a little bit of trimming only on the front fenders, we clear and wheel 37s on it. So kind of a breakdown on this. I'll start at the front of the vehicle. We'll move all of our way to the back. And I would expect this video to be a little longer than some of them, just because I'm so enthusiastic and I love this truck so much. And I'll dive into some of the reasons why I think it's such a good platform. But we'll start at the front. I get a lot of questions about the front bumper and the light bar that we have for it. It's just something we fabbed up. Is it something we're considering making? Sure. Is it in the works right now? No, but we'll be prototyping a lot of stuff for Ranger Raptor coming up here shortly. So we bent up a light bar, rolled a piece of tubing, and on that light bar is mounted 4 Baja Designs LP4 lights. I'll say that I think this is my favorite light on the market. It's not a huge light, but for the size that it is, it throws out a ton of light. And the cool thing about the LP4s and LP6s and 9s is you get a really wide beam pattern out of it. So I'm running 4 lights. I'm running 2 on the new daytime running light color, that amber, and then 2 in the middle, just clear. I find that this is plenty of light for everything I want to do, and I'm never at a point where I'm outrunning the light. And so that's kind of a concept that comes from racing, is there is a speed that you can drive the vehicle where you will physically drive faster than the beams that are projecting out. I won't dive into depth on outrunning lights, and maybe we'll do a light segment at some other time, but huge fan of the LP4s. I think it complements the front. I think it's plenty of light. It's not, I don't feel that it's like gaudy and overly done. And I like more of a simple build. We touched on the Nitto trail grapplers. I love this tire. I will probably actually move at some point to an all-terrain on this because I do like the vehicle so much. I love driving it on the street. One of the things that we try to push is don't be afraid to daily drive this stuff. So I just did a 2,000-mile road trip in this vehicle, driving it up to Montana, wheeled around in Montana, went all the way out to Overland Expo Pacific Northwest, and drove the whole thing. Even came home and realized, like, oh, I should probably give it a once-over and nut and bolt it, because we did a bunch of off-roading and shooting content and stuff. But it is one of those products that, like, you really can bolt it on and go out and daily drive the thing. So the Nitto trail grapplers are thrown on our new method wheel. So this is a 17 by 8 plus 45 forged bead grip. This is a wheel that we'll be offering exclusively. We have a couple little updates coming to it, and we'll have these things in stock. And my opinion, it's the best all-around wheel that I've found to date because of that plus 45 offset. And the Ranger Raptor from the factory comes with a plus 55. So it's a wide suspension where they suck it back in to what they deem as a acceptable track width, and they do that in the wheel. And I shot a wheel video a while back where I talked about positive offset versus negative offset wheels. And I shot that actually before this came out, and well, all the OEMs on all platforms, including the new 24 Tacoma, they're moving to a higher positive offset wheel, and Method was able to get us this wheel as, you know, a discussion of I need more positive offset, and we came up with this, and it really is the best fit that we have for our platforms. So moving back in the truck, I mentioned this thing's on portals. I still run a stock upper and lower control arm on it to date. I will change the upper. We are kicking around the ideas of making a billet lower. Do I think that it's necessary? No. Do I think that it would be really cool? Yes. So we'll go that route some other time. I went and got a bunch of product for this vehicle from Greg Foutz Motorsports, and I think he has some really good stuff that he's starting to release for Ranger Raptor. So I've got a skid plate on this, as well as a belly skid and an aluminum skid that protects the transfer case. You've got a balance between weight and strength. And while I have taken this vehicle into rocks, and I do plan on rock crawling with it, I'm not trying to run the hardest trails out there. So aluminum skids, the benefit there is you're not adding a ton of weight and you give it a bit of protection. One thing that is worth mentioning on this, so the Ranger Raptor unfortunately comes with the Haas 2.0 steering rack. And where it gets a little complicated is because it's a Raptor, you also get drive modes out of that steering rack. It runs the factory 12mm tie rods, which we've all seen all over the web, snapping left and right. Now, I'll say that I think a lot of the tie rod failures are kind of driver error. Don't light me up for that, but that's my opinion. But given that, I still don't think that that 12mm tie rod is, I mean, I don't want to wheel on a 12mm tie rod. I think that you're straddling that boundary of what's sufficient. And so we developed a whole steering rack for this. Now, it's similar to Bronco and Bronco Raptor in the sense that the physical size of the rack is the same. Where it goes awry from there is that the internals are different. So we were able to take an off-the-shelf rack, gut it, put it into our housing, program it, retain all of your drive modes, and then we came out to the tie rods and said, okay, it's somewhere in between a Bronco and a Bronco Raptor, and the Bronco Raptor tie rods will not work because it's a different outer taper on the tie rod. So I was able to get a set of Apex chassis tie rods for this, and they have enough thread on them that I was actually able to unthread it because this is 1.5 inches wider per side. And I ended up with almost 1.5 inches of thread engagement, given the fact that I took a Bronco tie rod and put it on a Bronco Raptor. Now, before you guys look at it and go, oh my God, there's so much thread exposed, from an engineering standpoint, if you have 1.5 times the diameter, it's a 20mm diameter. So if you end up with 30mm of thread engagement, that is sufficient. And going to 5 inches of thread engagement is actually not going to give you more strength. So I believe Apex Chassis is still going to develop a longer physical inner tie rod and run the same outer. But when I got everything aligned and looked at it, I made the call of we have sufficient thread engagement for strength on this, and I'm running them. And I've already done a couple, well, 3,000 miles probably, and a lot of that on-road, a bit of that off-road, and quite a bit of that in actual rocks. So I've pushed this a bit, And I feel confident in the amount of thread that we have. And so right now, while we wait for better solutions, I do think that the Apex chassis stuff with our rack is a good combo, and it does work. So we covered most of the front of the vehicle. I do get questions about what are the differences between Ranger Raptor and Bronco. And here's what I'll tell you. So pivot points between Ranger Raptor and Bronco are all the same. The main difference is the Bronco Raptor has a sway bar that connects to the physical upright. And so this set of portals was actually an early prototype of Bronco. This has been on 3 different vehicles, and we just built a quick bracket real fast. Well, by the time this video posts on YouTube, we'll have Ranger Raptor done and ready to ship. We have a release date on that coming soon, and follow us on, I guess, all platforms of social media, and you'll see the release of this product. So we'll move back a bit. One of the things that I did, because I'm not somebody that likes crazy wild builds. I know that might sound kind of weird, but I like things to function at a high level, but still look like they're fairly stock. And so, you know, I did have to trim a bit of the back side of this fender well. So from here to here, we actually had to pie cut, push back, and glue it in place. We are working on a full solution for OE style fender flares that are in the works. And because I do want a bit more coverage, we want this to bulge, to poke out about another 2 inches. And we're working on a solution for this right now that we'll sell kind of as a package. But one of the things that I really liked and I didn't want to get rid of was the factory steps. And you can make a higher clearance, better step for rock crawling. But this vehicle, I feel, is the best all-around platform that I've ever been in. And the reason I say that is it's a 128-inch wheelbase. It has Fox live valve from the factory. It does high speed really good, and it does low speed pretty dang good as well. I was surprised at how much flex I got out of the Watts Link. But given the fact that I didn't really want to make this a dedicated rock crawler, I still need sliders of some sort. And you're probably looking at it going, well, so then what's the solution? This actually is a slider now. So the factory steps are cast aluminum that then get rhino-lined or Line-X'd, or they get some kind of rubberized coating on it. So what we did is, this is just a prototype, but we went ahead and built a full tube structure that ties into the frame, and then these factory steps mount onto that, and we'll show that in a bit more detail. But I can use these as rock sliders if needed. Again, I'm not trying to run the hardest rock trails out there, but if you want that level of protection, we're going to be producing these and selling them as a kit, where you would basically take your factory steps, unbolt them from the body, mount them to our tube slider section, and that mounts to the frame. So moving back a bit, rear suspension, I mentioned Foutz and what he's worked on skids. I think he makes a couple really good products that I would recommend to anyone that's going to go and take this vehicle into rocks. One of them being the chassis side pivot on the lower A-arm is this kind of mount that just hangs straight down. And he makes a steel with, I'm guessing it's going to be a UHMW skid on that link mount. And it gives you kind of a ramp to be able to slide over. So I'm running Foutz skids there. I'm running a Foutz diff skid, which I was skeptical on a diff skid at first. I kind of told Greg, I said, I don't care if I hit it. And he says, just try it and give me your thoughts. I got my hands on that diff skid, and it really is well designed and well built. So I have a diff skid on that, as well as the factory live valve has little skids from Ford. Greg makes a much larger, much more robust aftermarket one, and I put those on because the last thing you want to do is smack into that live valve shock and ruin it. I don't know how much they are. I guarantee they're not cheap. And so I chose to make sure that that's nice and protected. I've got foutz lower links on it right now. And what else? I guess the only other thing that I really did, I did some nice custom pin striping, which hopefully will buff out with some wax up in Big Bear. I went and wheeled this thing at the Pure 4x4 event. We pushed it through Holcomb Valley, did a bunch of high-speed stuff out there, and probably one of my favorite additions that I've done to this truck, and one of the reasons I drove up to Montana was the GFC. So this right here is the new GFC V2 Pro, and I had a GFC V2 on my 23 Tacoma, and I love the versatility of the camper because it's one of those things that, like, I do a ton of camping with my kids. I've got a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old, and we're kind of out 1 to 2 weekends per month. And the ability to have a lightweight camper that I can quickly and easily pop up, that has a bed in it, it just makes camping so much more enjoyable. So I had experience with the V2. I got the V2 Pro, and what I'll say about it is it's super interesting. So it's still super lightweight, like it's 260 pounds, I believe. And GFC made a bunch of minor improvements that, in my opinion, make a huge product gain overall. So what are the improvements? They did new latches with latch covers on them. Little things like stamping their logo embossed into the side. Again, not necessarily a performance upgrade, but one of my favorite things that they did on the V2 Pro is they went ahead and they have a light kit that's integrated into it. So you have lighting built in now, and we're shooting this during the day, so you're not going to get a ton of views on it. But you can see the lights. They're all built into the camper, pre-wired, and I wired in and spliced in a permanent ARB plug, because on this truck, the 12 volt is only operational if the vehicle is running, which I don't get that, but whatever. So I put my own circuit in, so you always have the ability to use them. They did bedding catches, so like I literally leave my pillow and my quilt in the car at all times. And like a typical GFC, setting the thing up is 2 pins. Pull it, pop it, and you're done. Well, I'll get to that, I guess. One of the things new on this is the ability to grab and just yank the zippers. So it's a new zipper design. It's bigger windows on the side. But the biggest improvement to me is the mattress. And I had probably spent 30 nights in the V2. I've already spent about 10 nights in the V2 Pro. And when I was out at Overland Expo Pacific Northwest, we had hotel rooms, and I slept in this thing instead of the hotel because the mattress is that good. So they went from a 2-inch foam to a 3-inch, and it's like a dual stage foam. I don't know the details on it. I can just tell you from experience that it is really, really comfy. They did a few other little things, like they have permanent ventilation on the top of the camper. It helps with condensation, and I'm still waiting. They have headliners that are shipping for this soon. I'll put the headliner in. And last weekend, I was tinkering at my house, and I put a 200-watt solar panel on the roof of this. So I carry a battery bank in the back, and I think you could see it from the front. Yeah. So I've got a 200-watt panel now that will just live on the roof, and that runs all the way back. I wired it in, and so I always have batteries charging. And you can switch between having that charge from the physical vehicle or the solar panel, but I think a 200-watt solar panel is going to be plenty for what I'm doing. Suspension on this is bone stock, and I'm very opinionated on things. I will tell you, if you're going to change this suspension, you're crazy. Now, I say that, I will end up changing the suspension, the shocks at some point, but it'll be a cold day in hell before I give up live valve because it's so good. I will have a shock package that we're going to develop with Fox that will be a 3.0 internal bypass, custom built shock that will still integrate live valve into a different area of the shock. And that's something that we'll get in the works. Probably won't release it till the end of the year, but once you drive a vehicle with live valve, you'll nod your head and go, oh, I get what the hype is. I've had this vehicle with probably 350 pounds of tools in the back and rallied it, and I was not able to bottom the truck out. I jumped it in Big Bear. I was not bottoming the truck out. You know that hard thud that you feel in your back? I've never felt that in this thing. Now, I'm sure you can, but live valve is so good. To alter the suspension on this and give that up is just, to me, a complete deal breaker, which I think is one of the reasons that our kit for this is so good, is because our whole message is leave the suspension alone. These OEMs have put so much time and effort into it. Bolt a portal on, bolt a big tire on, throw a GFC on the back, and you're ready to go. Like, this vehicle will go absolutely anywhere in essentially stock form with a portal. You can talk about light bar, rock sliders, or any of that stuff, but that's just added protection. So from a capabilities standpoint, it's a stock platform with a portal, a big tire, and this thing's ready for adventure. So any questions on this build, throw it in the comments. I will answer them, and we'll get you continual updates on this truck, because I think it's the best all-around vehicle I've ever been in, and I say that with a straight face and serious as a heart attack, because it's so good. If you're looking at a Ranger Raptor, go drive one. Just test drive it. I've personally convinced 6 people to go out and buy these, and everyone's called me back and said, oh man, you're right, it really is that good. So check it out. I know Ford's not doing a bunch of marketing yet on these. I hope they step up their game, and until they do, we'll bring you Ranger Raptor content, because it's an amazing vehicle. So give us a subscribe on YouTube. Let us know what kind of content you want to see on this truck, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, guys.
Mm-hmm.